Hi cultural geographers, this is Mrs. T again with our last short lecture this week. I'm going to try to keep this short even though these are super interesting topics. You can text me or post stuff in the discussion board to ask questions or to start conversations with your classmates. So, we are going to talk right now about gender, sex, and sexuality. These are additional cultural identification, ethnic identification, social identification, all of the different kinds of IDs that we were discussing in the opening lecture 2 or 3 lectures ago. These are part of our self-identity and the way that we feel a connection to other people within our group. These are also situations in which we can feel as though we are the other, or there are others compared to us in a society. And so let's start talking about the cultural construction or the socially constructed situation of gender. So when we were talking about race and ethnicity in a recent video, I mentioned that race is socially defined or culturally defined. Gender is the same thing. Gender is about behavior. It's about the ways in which we define our femininity or masculinity. So if masculinity is way over here on this end of a spectrum, and femininity is way over here on this end of the spectrum, please notice that there's an end point here, an end point here, and let me give you a math question today. How many points are there on any line segment? Anybody remember? Infinity is the number. So each culture doesn't have infinity numbers of genders within it, no, but there are an infinite number of human behavior, infinite amount of human behaviors that are possible, and gender is about social behavior. So masculine, what is like the most masculine adjectives that you can think of? Think of 4. Let 4 masculine adjectives pop into your mind. Rough, tough, brawny, muscular, don't cry, those kinds of things. I've heard from students in face-to-face classes before when I've asked them this question. Think of 4 counterposing feminine characteristics that you can think of. I've heard soft and sweet and nurturing. I've even heard the word sparkly used. Somebody told me glitter once. Okay, if that's what came to mind with feminine adjectives, all right. But is every female, here I've used a biology word, is every female individual in society sparkly, glitter, soft, nurturing? That leaves out your dear old cultural geography teacher. Let me just tell you, if every female in the world has to be or behave in a feminine manner, if that's what ultra femininity is, then it leaves out a ton of people I know. Just like the rough, tough, brawny, muscular, hairy, whatever words you can think of for masculine leaves out a whole bunch of males. Here's a biological word I will use. Females, males, and there is an other sex category, the wrong word almost slipped out. Sex category. Sex is a biological condition. The third, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, naturally occurring sex category is intersex. So intersex is a combination of various physical internal sex characteristics, internal external sex characteristics. We call them primary and secondary characteristics, biological characteristics that are tend to be associated with females or tend to be associated with males. There's a list of primary and secondary sex characteristics that females have when an organism is entirely female. There's a list of primary and secondary physical characteristics that males have when organisms are entirely male. And there are a mixture of those typically female, typically male sex characteristics in all intersex organisms. Intersex is a naturally occurring third sex category within the entire animal kingdom, which human beings are a part, and within plants and all that kind of stuff. You might remember in life science class in like 8th grade or something, when your textbook had drawn in there a cross section of a lily flower. And lily flowers are used in particular because they are intersex organisms. They have both female and male sex characteristics within the one flower, so they can pollinate themselves and reproduce. So biology is what sex is about. Culture, society is what gender is about. And not every society has stops all along this line, but there are many different genders that people go through in their individual lifetime. When I was 8 years old, even though biologically I'm female, I behaved something along here. People called me a tomboy. I am a female, but my gender category was tomboy. I much preferred to do all the things you boys were doing and leave my sisters in the dust, literally, on my dirt bike when I was trying to, jump jumps and climb trees and not drown in a river that I shouldn't have been swimming across and that kind of stuff. So tomboy is a gender characteristic, a gender category, just like girly man. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Y'all probably don't even know who he is anymore, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was a really famous movie actor that later became the governor of California, and he's this tough guy, kind of, I think he was Mr. World bodybuilder. Like he would probably call himself this end of this spectrum right there. Anyway, his favorite insult for people if they didn't live up to what his expectations were, they were a girly man. Well, girly man, where does that go? Man is a male gender category, but girly man, is it right here where tomboy is? I don't know, because also man has age overlapped with it. I was a youngster when this applied to me. Maybe it still applies to some females today in their 40s, like I am now. Typically, I don't think of myself as a tomboy anymore. But anyway, there's a ton of different gender categories. Gender is about behavior, and behavior is assigned to the cultural expectation for the sex category that you are. So there are many different genders, but you cannot use gender and sex interchangeably. And to complicate matters further, sexuality, pardon me, my dog is playing with a squeak toy, and an alarm is going off on my cell phone that I thought was silenced. So 1 second. So sorry. Here's the squeak toy that he wanted. Isn't that cute? His little squeaky. Ew, it's got like water in it or something from the rainstorm. Anyway, I've got it now. Pardon me. I was about to say that sexuality complicates things even further, because sexuality is not necessarily linked with gender category, and it's not necessarily linked with your sex category either. And as we know now, after the confirmation hearings yesterday, sexual preference is not an appropriate term to use anymore. So if that is listed in your textbook, I'm sure the textbook authors will rewrite that in the future. But sexuality has to do with the orientation of attractiveness that you have after you reach sexual maturity. And so it has to do with sexual behavior also, and sexual behavior according to your orientation. And so sexuality is not necessarily linked with your gender category, because while I behaved very masculinely as a child, when I developed into a sexual being and had sexual interests of my own, I am interested in males and not people of my same sex, and I behave much closer to over here, although I'm definitely not sparkly or pink or anything like that. So anyway, you can maybe examine your cultural ideal. My dog's trying to steal Gunny. No. My dog's trying to steal the pig, and Junior's whining now. So I will be wrapping this up. because also my phone alarm went off for a reason. So this video was ill-planned, but you've got the information that you need about this second kind of way that we have cultural identity, that we have social identity. Junior, cultural identity, social identity, ethnic identity, self-identity. These are more of the complicated layers that make up humanity and that we can find in our cultural landscape. So thank you for your attention. No matter how scatterbrained this video was, my apologies. Please text me with questions, and Gunny and Junior say hello. Bye-bye.